Hello and welcome into the RotoWire Esports Show. My name is Andrew Laird, joined as always by Ethan Sexton. This time to talk about Saturday's four-game LPL LCK slate. We're going to pretend that Friday's LCS slate is not even there, since we don't really have much time to dive in. But we'll see what the LCS coverage is in a little, or at some point. But we're going to focus on China and South Korea for a little bit longer. Ethan, we were just talking now how you can get the right team combos on a slate. I had two lineups yesterday, or this morning, excuse me, filled with team players on winning teams. Didn't come remotely close to cashing those. And then the best lineup I had was the two right teams, but just flipped in terms of 4-3 stack. So I was saying I like League of Legends DFS the most because of how it's basically just a puzzle. And I'm reminded of it every day that the pieces will fit at some point, and I just have to get the right combo. But man, it is frustrating to get. It's hard enough finding the right combos to get winning, all winning players. But then to not even cash is it's a little disheartening.
Yeah, it can be frustrating, that's for sure. I mean, and then today, with E-Star just popping off in the four-man E-Star stack, it's sort of sometimes like a weird mental block you got to get over, because you look at a four-man E-Star lineup, and even if you played them with Top Esports, which was the right combination today, and then you're looking at having however much salary, thousands in salary left over potentially, and it's I should spend that somewhere, and it's no, maybe you shouldn't, but it's a weird, for me anyway, it's always a weird mental block thing where if I have 4K in salary, I'm gosh, I should do something with that. That's the point. Yeah, so it is frustrating, when you get the teams right, and especially when you pick out the underdog that smashes, and you just don't have four of them, you only have three of them, and that costs you. But I don't know, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably something I'll have to look into a little more. But we were just talking before we started recording, when you pick an underdog, at least the way I look at it is I just don't expect the underdog to smash. And so it's why would I make them my four-man if I don't think they're going to smash? And so...
Well, yeah, to your point that you said before we started recording, it's you were between captaining Rat or Jackie Love, and it's what? It's a no-brainer. You want to captain Jackie Love.
Right.
And then, of course, Rat outscores him. But it's it's a mental thing where Jackie Love's obviously the way better player, so he's going to do better, but unfortunately it doesn't always work out that way for us. But
I generally don't even look at salary. It's more just not that I wish they didn't have salaries, but I almost wish it was just don't even tell me the salaries, but just tell me if I can make this combination, and if I can't, then fine. But I literally don't look at salary at all, at least in terms of if I have money left over, if I have the combos that I want, then that's it. I feel if I cared about it, I would have done what I did anyway. If I had just flipped Rat and Jackie Love, I'd be oh, I have all this money, I'll just captain Jackie Love. Just go for it.
Right. I definitely would have done the same thing too. And I had him captain in one lineup. I didn't end up playing E-Star at all, which obviously cost me, but even just I had a T1 Top Esports lineup. They both scored with both 80 carries, and they both scored over 100 points, and I didn't cash at that either. I mean, T1 lost their series, but their players scored fairly well that it was possible. But it is what it is.
The plus is that everybody that I picked actually played, so we're moving in the right direction here.
Yep, that was a good thing. And of course, Closer, who played last series and they won, Faker came back in today. So if people played Closer, then they probably ended up with a blank. So yeah, it's still a frustrating thing with those 10-man rosters, especially. For
sure. But we're going to move on to the Saturday slate. Friday night, I was talking to someone else recently about it, and we kept confusing each other because he would consider the upcoming slate the Friday night slate because he's staying up, whereas I'm it obviously starts early in the morning on Saturday. But yeah, another 4-game slate. No giant favorites like we had the past few games or a few days. I guess Victory 5 is the biggest one over LGD, who I consistently confused with JDG, which they are very different. But for some reason, getting a G in the middle or in there, there's some mental block where I'm like, wow, how are they that? And I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's the wrong. That's not the one that should be there.
Right.
So we've got FPX is the other LPL favorite over EDG. And then we've got Hanwha Life favored over DRX in the LCK. And then we've got this close one with this Sandbox team that we were talking about previously that we, might be able to get something out of. They're favored a little bit over KT Rolster. So do you think everybody tries to go Victory 5 and just build from there? But they're expensive, though.
I know they're expensive, and it's like a gross proposition to play this V5 team as the biggest favorite and the most expensive. I mean, it's just like not a good lineup, but they're also facing a team that is not a good lineup. And, LGD made Worlds last year, but this is not the same LGD team. And unfortunately for them tomorrow, it makes matters even worse because Kramer can't play, so they have to start their backup top laner at AD carry. So, I mean, it's Victory 5 is probably going to win, but, man, I don't want to play them at those prices because I don't trust them. They're bringing in Trigger to start over Y4, which is interesting because Trigger's a guy who used to play for APK Prince in Korea, which is now they rebranded into one of the teams. I can't think of which one it was off the top of my head. But Trigger was a guy who played with them when they were coming into the LCK, and he was solid, and I think Y4's kind of washed, so I would look at that as a small upgrade for V5. But, man, I don't know. The V5 team, just looking at it, it really doesn't inspire me with a ton of confidence, so it's a little scary going all in on them tomorrow. But I can't deny that they should be in a pretty good spot because I think this LGD team might be halfway decent when Kramer's there. I don't know if they're going to be fighting for a world spot again this season, but man, without Kramer and having to play Garvey at AD carry tomorrow, I don't really like LGD as an underdog at all. So can't really fault anyone if they want to go for V5 tomorrow.
Yeah, it definitely felt more about LGD than V5.
For sure.
But FPX is there.
Yep.
They're not as big of a favorite, but we're more than comfortable playing them usually.
Yeah, they're in a tough matchup though. I mean, that's the matchup for tomorrow. This EDG team has gotten off to a really good start, and then they have a really good lineup. So FPX aren't as safe either. So I really think like the key to tomorrow's slate might be that matchup though, getting in on the right side. So I would recommend if people are playing multiple lineups to definitely get in on both sides of that with 4-man stacks if you can somehow. Obviously, if you go with FPX and do a 4-man, you're going to have to find an underdog somewhere. But EDG are definitely live dogs. I mean, they've got a really good team. I like their lineup a lot. They've looked really good so far this season for the most part. And although I really am high on this FPX team, I wouldn't be surprised if EDG took them down tomorrow either. So I'm leaning FPX in that one, but it's certainly, for how expensive they are, because I think they're actually the highest priced team. Well, I guess it depends on the role, but they're the highest priced AD carry mid and top. So 3 out of the 4 roles they have the highest priced players, and they're not the safest thing it's not the safest. Usually when you got the highest priced team like that, you're expecting a little more safety, but it's not going to be that way tomorrow against EDG. But I think I'm going to lean for FPX. I'm really high on this FPX side. I mean, they got 5 world champions in their roster. I just think they're freaking stacked, and they look so good in their opening game that I'm going to lean for them in this matchup. But I mean, it's such a cop out. But I can't fault anyone for playing EDG, and I would certainly take a shot on them if I'm playing multiple entries because I do think they're a very good team.
Yeah, FPX team spot is the 3rd highest.
Yep.
So it is. You don't usually see that, like you're saying. Like they have 3 of the 5 highest positional spots.
Right.
I feel like if this was a 2-game slate, we'd talk about a game stack. but I struggle to see it on a 4-gamer.
It could happen, but yeah, I mean, I never do them. I'm not a fan of doing it, but once in a while it works. And that could be a high intensity, fast paced series. So it could happen. I'm not going to do it though. But I don't ever do game stacks. It's not saying much, I guess.
Where do you see these LCK games? Like obviously HLE, who we've discussed previously. I think you said you liked them as a potential upset in their last series. Maybe it was, their last one. They're the second biggest favorite on the slate. There's just it's just tough for me to get super excited about really any LCK team. But I guess theoretically the difficulty is that they're expensive. So you're completely taking yourself out unless you do EDG and that's it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think HLE deserve to be favorites in that series tomorrow, but I kind of like some of the similarly priced teams around them more. HLE are just kind of scary because they have Chovy, who I do think is a really great mid laner, but he's got a lot on his shoulders. The rest of the team around him isn't that great, really. I don't think I think Deft is still pretty good, even though he's, like we said, he's kind of in the twilight of his career. I think he's still capable, AD carry for sure. But then Morgan and, their jungle role and their support role, it's not like the greatest rest of the lineup. And DRX looked pretty good. They played kind of an Africa team that we don't expect to be that great this year. But this is kind of this is I'm looking at this one as a battle of teams who could be fighting for the last playoff spot potentially. Once we get later into the season. So DRX, I think, their jungle gap in this game is going to be huge with Piosik. He's really good. Kingen looked pretty good in his first game. And their 3 rookies looked good against Africa as well. But this is definitely a bigger task for them. Solka in the mid lane, the rookie, is going up against Chovy. That's way different than going up against Fly. And then same for their bottom lane, going against Deft, at least Deft, even though I'm not high on Vista in the support role for HLE. But going against Deft is a way bigger proposition at this point in his career than it is in facing Bang, who's coming back from North America. So DRX, I'm saying the same thing for all these games because I kind of think they're sort of close. DRX, I wouldn't mind them as a small underdog. I don't know if they end up scoring enough even in a win. And same for HLE in a win. I'm not sure if they score enough to really be worth it. I'd rather, looking at their prices, probably rather play the V5 guys. Even though I don't feel like V5 are safe, I feel like if they win, there's going to be a lot higher chance of more kills in their games than in the HLE DRX game. So I'd probably look that way. I'm sort of ignoring that HLE DRX series in the lineups that I was looking at. So I don't know. I think HLE win, but I don't know if they really push the pace and dominate with multiple 20-kill games or something like that, but who knows?
I think I think that game, at least from a kill prop perspective, has a higher line than this Sandbox KT game, but it's pretty close, and I don't think anybody would be surprised if that one ended up being higher scoring. You think that's, if we're going to target an LCK game, that's the one we should look at?
Yeah, I like that one a little bit better. I think Sandbox looked really good in their opening series, and I think they're looking pretty solid. I think they should be a pretty good team this year for the most part, and I think they're a team that would probably push the action a little more than both HLE and DRX is what it feels like. I mean, we've only seen them one time so far this year, but that's kind of the way I feel. I'm going to say it again, though. I sound like a broken record, but sort of like KT as an underdog. They got smashed by Gen G, but I'm not going to hold that against them too much. I think that although Sandbox, I kind of feel like Sandbox should be fighting for a playoff spot this year, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if KT won. I still think KT are halfway decent. I mean, I like UCal. I like Hybrid, excuse me. And if they can get something a little more out of their jungle spot, and I think they could be a decent team as well, so it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if they ended up being being an underdog team that could win tomorrow as well. It's kind of a weird slate in that way, where a lot of these underdogs certainly have a chance. The ones I'm just really sour on LGD because they're starting to back up top laner at 80 carry. But other than that, I think all three of the other underdogs could win. It's just who's going to score the most points, and I would lean towards KT or EDG as the underdogs rather than DRX. I just get the feeling that series isn't going to be the one with the high kill totals necessarily.
Yeah, I mean the KT's like the highest underdog. Like they Sandbox is minus 130 right now. KT's plus 107. So it's not like if they win, it's a huge a huge surprise. It's more just like just as we were saying kind of at the beginning, like you don't necessarily look at an underdog and think like if they win they're going to smash, but like they can, and certainly KT has the roster to do it. And they're not like giant underdogs anyway. So yeah, that's an interesting combo. Given that you like EDG though, like do you think more people stack a V5 with the underdogs or FPX with the non-EDG underdogs?
It's hard to say.
It's pretty much impossible to get two favorites reasonably.
I feel like the casual player might like look at V5 and see that they're pretty highly priced and the odds are huge that they might go V5 and then like an EDG or an underdog. But I just have a hard time trusting this V5 team. So it's like it just makes me pause. But maybe it's like that's like my bias, So I'm taking that into account, I guess. But man, I don't know, because see, the way I would think is that FPX would be a little lower owned because EDG are such a good team, even though FPX are favorites, that I would think maybe that would push people to V5 or even like a Sandbox's direction. But I don't know. Tomorrow might be kind of more of a spread out day just because, we've got a lot of underdogs who are viable and favorites. Some of the favorites aren't as trustworthy as others, So I don't know. It could be an interesting slate from an ownership standpoint.
Yeah, it is kind of. I mean, it's nicer that way, so that we're not all just tagging on the same guys. But
for sure,
if you go FPX, do you think you do and be captain or LWX?
I would lean LWX I still think 80 carries are getting the majority of kills in these games right now, so I would still lean LWX. But Do and Be is definitely viable. 2 years ago when they won Worlds, it was because he would roam all over the map, so his kill participation was always through the roof. Now that took kind of a backseat role last year, but he's certainly viable. And I love this FPX roster on paper, so I can't really fault anyone for doing either. But I would lean LWX just because I think 80 carries at this point are still scoring quite a bit higher than mid laners in most of the games that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I guess the problem with doing a do and be captain is that you're not playing two mids where you don't necessarily want to have to lock both of that or two in that position in.
Right.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's everything. If you guys are watching this, we're not covering LCS, but be careful if you're playing because lineups are all over the place. There's a lot of visa issues with some of the teams that have foreigners coming in. Some of them have Europeans that are on their teams, and some of the teams don't. So just try to scour Reddit and Google and not Google, Reddit and Twitter, and try to figure out who's playing if you're playing tonight. I'm sitting it out happily. I'm just going to watch. So, but just a word of warning there for everybody. But yeah, for tomorrow's LCK LPL slate, I think we've hit everything we can.
Yeah, I think the other thing about LCS is that these aren't like regular season games yet, so like there could be some wacky stuff. Are these best of one also?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, so best of one with players we don't know who are actually there, and
yeah,
great.
I didn't feel like hunting around on Twitter all day, so I'm not that interested in playing tonight. But
fair enough.
If people are, grow the game, baby.
Yeah, good. All right, if you guys have liked the video, if you could just hit the like button below, and feel free to subscribe and get the notifications whenever our new videos are up. Ethan and I are doing this every day for these LPL, LCK slates, as well as LPL ones in the beginning of the week. So we'll keep doing those. And yeah, so Ethan, thank you for that, and good luck on Saturday.
All right, man. Thanks. You too.